How's it going? I'm Aaron, and this is Community Productions giving you a video game review. So, I played quite a few video games over the years, and I've got my favorites, and I definitely have my genres that I like to play in. And one of my particular favorite genres of all time happens to come from action adventure, role-playing based games. And from that perspective, I've played certain games that's been under a particular branch of studio from Software, which brought to us the Demon Souls, Dark Souls series, and Bloodborne, Sekiro, the whole 9 yards. And at this point, I've become quite comfortable with the format of how those games are played. With that said, it doesn't mean that From Software is the only studio out there producing their style of games and gameplay. There are others, and for the most part, there are quite a few duds in the water, but every once in a while, there happens to be a studio or studios that comes out the woodwork that might know a thing or two of what they're trying to do. And that happens to be the case with two particular studios, this case being Neowiz Games, and the other one is Round 8 Studios. And they've brought to us the game that we're talking about today, Lies of P. Now, talking about Lies of P is the same thing as talking about basically a fairy tale. We're talking about Pinocchio, which was written a while ago by the great Corrado Cordelli. I'm probably butchered the heck out of that name. This particular rendition definitely has its darker tones. This takes place into like a steampunk, dark, post-apocalyptic variation in a city called Krat, in which the titular character Pinocchio, who happens to be a puppet, well, not puppet in the same sense as he was in the original story, being wooden. No, this is pretty much a robot who is sent on this journey to try and become a real person. However, he has to deal with the horrors that surround him in this particular world. In the case of monsters that are coming from, monsters are springing up everywhere due to the horrible experiments being run by alchemist guilds. Of course, other rampaging, crazed puppets that are going out crazy from whatever messed up situation that made them go that way, and various other terrors along the way. And one of the major concepts from the story of Pinocchio that basically almost everybody should be familiar with, or if you are familiar with that story, is the concept of telling lies. Of course, in the original story, Pinocchio, whenever he told a lie, would make his nose grow, and he was supposed to be trying to make sure that he would stop telling lies in order to become a real boy. Well, in this particular story, telling lies is an integral part to actually becoming what you want to be. So what I like about this particular story in this game actually revolves around the concept of how closely it resembles the original story of the Adventures of Pinocchio, but with its own unique twists and turns. I gotta admit, when it came to the concept of Pinocchio, he's really not one of my favorite fairy tales. It's actually one of those Disney films, or at least those stories, those original fairy tales that I kind of tend to skip a lot. That wasn't necessarily the case in this one. I feel as though adding the unique concept of almost the three laws of robotics that you would probably be familiar with if you know anything about iRobot and Isaac Asimov's story structures, as well as the concept of plagues being running amok, tends to give this a unique twist. And I actually found myself feeling the draw to actually want to achieve the goal that Pinocchio is basically set out there to do. But I felt as though the main aspect of the storyline that I feel as though is a real draw is the characters or the NPCs that you encounter in the world of Krat in Lies of P. There are, of course, the original characters to the storyline that you are familiar with, i.e. Pinocchio, Jiminy Cricket, Geppetto, and the Blue Fairy, but then you have your own unique twists and turns with how they drive those characters and their drives in the story itself. I was really interested in the character of the Blue Fairy, or in this case, Sophia, and other characters like the fox and the cat. Or stalkers, characters that you encounter in this world. I thought it was really unique how you were able to interact with them, and the concepts of or the dire circumstances that brought you all together. As far as gameplay is concerned, Lies of P plays again very much similar to what you would have thought a From Software game would play like, even though this is again not a From Software game. It's a single player uh, RPG that has you find unique weapons and augment yourself with the currency in the world in order to gain higher levels. And there are also the unique dangers and traps that are set in place to throw you off, or of course kill you if you're not paying attention. A lot of the weapons in this game are uniquely tailored towards basically fighting unique enemy classes. You have your puppets or robotic like characters that usually take on more damage with more hard hitting and more destructive like swords or giant axes. But then you also have monster like characters that utilizes acid that helps deteriorate you, and which is also a unique well, not unique because you are in the Soul series or different other series that are like in the From Software games, where you have various elements that can affect your player, and you can also utilize weapons that use those unique elements in themselves. I feel as though when it comes to the really unique concepts that only Lies of P really has to offer, comes with the concept of the Legion arm system, which very utilizes the robotic or prosthetic arm that Pinocchio has to equip various weapons that he can utilize to take on various different kinds of enemies and gain the upper hand in the battle. I found one of the unique tools I found that was very useful for me in this journey happens to be the puppet string, which is very much a grappling hook arm like system, and of course the flamethrower. Well, that's a big favorite of mine. Any kind of flame like weapon is a huge favorite of mine in any particular game. I just like how this arm really feels. It kind of does feel like you're using this very powerful like weapon. The unique character find trophy, or not trophies, but special items that you came across in the game that basically enriches your environment, enriches your concept of the story and the game itself, i.e., the concept of the records, or the records that you find throughout the game with certain characters. Story missions or just areas in general in the game. I just love finding unique special little items like that because it just helps enriches your experience with it. Oh, and of course, you can't forget about the leveling system itself. Again, you have the traditional variation that you would have found in any particular games from software, i.e., a currency. In this case, a concept called ergo, which is, in my opinion, very much similar towards the concept of the Philosopher's Stone. But it's pretty much it fits kind of pretty cool in this story. But of course, using that as a currency to bring to a particular NPC or a bonfire, or in this particular case, a stargazer system to increase your levels in certain attributes. But then you have also the new concept of the P organ system, which utilizes the particular quartz crystals that you gain throughout the game in order to put into certain attributes that increases P's awareness or ability, or certain concepts in the story that helps brighten your experience. Lies of P's presentation flows again from the concept that this is a darker variation of the storyline of Pinocchio. Again, this is very much a steampunk-driven, plague-infested, post-apocalyptic world of the Italian story that you find yourself in. And from the concept behind this many NPCs and how they're a lot more darker, where in this particular case, other than where I bring you towards the concept of the fox and the cat from the original story, they're not just some fox and cat that tries to dupe or trick you. They're people just having to deal with the concept of living in a world where you have to tell lies in order to survive and thrive, and they are hunters on the hunt to try and find something to help themselves, despite what it might end up doing to anybody else. Geppetto is very much a character that I found very intriguing, and having his unique storyline and presence and connection to the character of P, or Pinocchio himself. But the city of Krat itself is so cool to experience. It made, again, this game kind of made, I think the main draw is that it made me very familiar, or think about another a game that was very similar to it, i.e. Bloodborne, which was something I was so desperate to try and play a sequel to. Well, this one kind of does scratch that itch, because it does feel very much in that same ballpark, but with its own unique feel. I talked about earlier the concept of records in this game. Finding them and experiencing them and actually getting to play them in this game is so cool, because they have such a unique concept behind listening to them, and then gaining this whole concept of finding your humanity within the music, your humanity by choosing to tell a lie or not to tell a lie, and basically the various choices you come across in this world. Now, with all the good concepts that I found in this game, there are some down points. And I think probably one of the most biggest sins this game commits is the fact that for a game that is centered around an Italian story, being able to actually experience it with the Italian language is a letdown. Being able to actually, experience the characters speak fluently in their native language and be able to follow along in English would have helped me, immerse myself even further. And then there's also the concept that, from all the characters that you experience in this world, there's really only one individual that's up here actually having an Italian accent. And I'm like, is that really something that should have been in in this game? Like, this is supposed to be talking about an Italian story. Where's the Italian accent? I mean, you may not be actually speaking Italian, but come on now. And there's also the derivative aspects that you might find. Again, I found myself comparing and contrasting this from other software games, and when you're actually so close to what somebody else done, there's so much more that you have to do to make yourself unique. And I don't know if Lies of P actually has that many unique concepts that really divides it from other games very similar towards it. I love the steampunk dark variation of the fairy tale, but then again, you have other games that have done it, and there's so much more grandeur, or so much more recognized. But that definitely doesn't discourage me from playing it and helping that more people will find this game and actually want to play it themselves. When I think about games in this particular series, I feel as though if you're going to also try and emulate certain games that's very much like it, one of the major concepts that I found that was a consistent perk in those games is how difficult or challenging those games may be. And Lies of P, even though it's very cool and it does have its avenues for challenges or some difficulty, it's not nearly as difficult or challenging as you may want it to be. I'm literally getting up towards the last point of the game, and I find that finding one last individual to be far more harder than most of the other bosses or characters that I experienced. I practically almost breezed through it my first go through, and that's just something I didn't necessarily think I was going to do in that particular style. That may appeal to certain other individuals, but I almost always enjoy a good challenge. I almost always play my games on the hardest difficulty, or at least close to hardest difficulty, and I expect that when I'm playing that for for various other titles. But that's just one particular gripe that I might have. But but overall, how do I actually feel Lies of P plays, or what do I actually feel about it in general? Well, even though it doesn't necessarily become that spiritual successor that I desperately needed from a game in this style, it still was a very great time to play. I enjoyed playing the series, and I actually kind of look forward to the sequels coming out, especially with the teasers that you get in the storyline going forward. If it's true, I'm all here for it. But overall, again, this is pretty much a great time to have, and I totally encourage anybody else out there to go out and play it for yourself and feel, and how do you feel about it? But that's it. That's my review for Liza P. As always, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit our notifications down on the bottom if you want to get more notified for more videos just like this. Again, I'm Aaron, and this is Sick Media Productions. I'll see you later.